Dr. Wafa, can you hear me?
Hello, good afternoon. Yes, I do.
Yes, yes, okay.
Okay, great. I'll be sharing slides on time and I'll switch on the camera on time as well. Is that
Yeah,
okay?
we have 10 minutes to left. I mean, yeah, 10 minutes left.
It's a minute. Yeah.
Oh,
So in 2 minutes, I'll start the sharing and everything. Is that okay?
yes, yes.
Yes, great. Thank you so much.
It, I feel that there is some that the voice is, I mean, cutting there.
I can hear you,
From
yes.
from my side or from your side?
Just 1 second.
Okay, guys, let me hear the guys here. Is my voice audible, guys? So welcome everyone. Dr. Wafa, I mean, Dr. Michelle will be the moderator. I will be here. And yeah, Dr. Michelle is here. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mahsan. Thank you for your feedback. Okay, thank you. That my voice is audible.
Yeah.
Dr. Wafa, can you hear me? Dr. Wafa? Okay, lovely. Yeah, yeah. Okay, lovely. So we have 6 minutes to go.
I'm just trying to see the chat box while.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want me to write, or you can ask? You can ask the participant to write something that you can. You
Can you
can.
write
You can.
anything? Can you just write anything?
Okay. I
There is a loud voice of people meeting and talking. Maybe somebody is switching on his mic somewhere.
I think they are around me.
Okay.
Hello. I'm writing in the chat box. So
when I'm sharing the slides, I cannot see the chat box.
yes, exactly. This is what I told you that before. So either you can use another device, a second device.
Yes, that makes sense. I'll be joining
Or
right
you
now.
can do one thing. You can stop sharing. And
مشكلة خلاص. I'll be joining the other device, right?
okay. So yeah, they already the people are writing in the chat box. I can see.
That's fine. I can do that. Thank you.
So we still have 4 minutes to go. Okay, hello guys. We still have 2 minutes to go. I feel that I hope that you feel my voice is audible and okay. So till now we have like Dr. Wafa, we have like okay, let me check here. Like we have over 85 participants from all around the world. So you can write something for them. Okay, yeah.
Actually, the thing is, you can hear me, right? When I'm sharing the screen, Teams doesn't allow me to write anything. So basically, I'm writing from my other device. But I got inside from
you can follow what will be written in the chat box.
Yeah.
Okay.
Greetings to everyone.
Okay, guys. Okay, on behalf of English Language Center, University of Technology and Applied Science, Ibri Oman. So we would like to welcome you all, and our special thanks to Dr. Wafa. She's speaking to us from United Arab Emirates. And just let me introduce Dr. Wafa to you. Um, Dr. Wafa is an associate professor in applied linguistics Zayed University, United Arab Emirates. She is an accredited professional international trainer in strategic planning. Her research interests in applied linguistics covers phonology, and translanguaging in higher education and sociolinguistics. And she has written on these topics in several journals. So please, guys, let's welcome Dr. Wafa, and the mic is yours.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, you are very audible for me.
Excellent. And can you see me as well?
Of course, yes.
That's great. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I would like actually to start with to be very thankful to Mr. Faisal Qasim for this invitation, and to his university in Ibri as well for providing such continuous professional development for all the academics. Now, let me start here, and I believe that this session will be an hour or less. So I'll be sharing with you some ideas regarding the title that you can see in the screen right now. And we will leave the discussion, the Q&A until the end. So feel happy, please, to share with me your questions in the chat box, and I'll be taking all of these toward the end of the session. So our topic is regarding the global spread of English and how this spread is influencing diversity and inclusivity in language setting, in educational settings, particularly where language is used. Now, never to say or to clarify more that the spread of English has influenced people life all over the world, particularly the educationalists. And this spread has got certain implications that Smith, since the 70s, started to talk about. And actually, his work about this has been influencing the work of so many scholars and writers regarding how the spread of English has influenced performance of teachers as well as students. Some of these suggestions or proposals that were introduced by Smith since the 70s were the ownership of English. So he started to talk about the denationalization of English. English is not anymore the language of specific countries, which we are referring to widely as native speaker countries, but English is denationalized. It is the language of every single person who use it in the globe and feel that he needs it as the lingua franca. The other principle for him is speaking English differently from native speakers does not mean at all that we are speaking incorrect or improper English. Let me ask you a question here at this point, please. How often did you hear about advertisement, especially in social media, saying things like, if you would like to speak correct English, join our course. If you would like to speak native speakers, like native speakers of English, join our course. How often do you hear these things until today? If you stopped hearing them, tell us that I don't hear this anymore. If you are still hearing this and encountering them, just tell us in the chat box, please. Many a time. Okay, several times. Okay, and how often do you hear this statement that if you would like, for example, to speak correct English or to speak like native speakers, join this course. Or I'm going to provide you with a course that can tell you how to speak like native speakers. Often, a lot. Okay, this is the norm now. Rare, many times. Okay, most of the time, yes, yes. Now, I asked this question at this point because until today morning, I'm still seeing these advertisements in social media and announcements saying that if you would like to speak correct English, please join us. Or if you would like to, if you feel shy about the way you are speaking English and would like to improve it, please join us. It is a pity that we are still hearing these words, while actually the native speakers themselves since the 70s started to talk about something totally different. And they started to say your English is not incorrect if you don't sound like native speakers, between quotation marks. Now, the third principle by Smith is that it is not necessary to appreciate the culture of the native speakers of English, or you don't need, or you don't have to learn the culture of the native speakers of English if you would like to use English effectively in your everyday life. Now, these three principles actually have been used a lot by researchers and scholars who have been talking about English as a lingua franca or English as a global language. But then recently it started to exceed this and started to be used beyond the circle of teaching and learning English. In any context where English is used as a medium of instruction, these principles are available and are thought about. So let's move on and talk a little bit about these concepts. Now, is it a fact or a myth if we say this? You are a better teacher if you don't use your first language and only use English while teaching. May I ask you, please, Dr. Faisal, is everybody here only a teacher of English, or do we have teachers of other courses, which is not English?
Actually, we have different national, international participants. You can ask in the chat box. I cannot.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So excellent. So we can. Okay. All right. Okay. Fine. So many people are saying no. It's myth, 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 myth. Oh, it's a fact. I think it depends. Okay. Fine. Why? Well. Okay. Fine.
Yeah,
Why?
we have one over 130 here.
Oh, great. Now, this is another thing which has been, the discussion about this has been going on, right? Let me know, please, if you agree or disagree, everyone here in this virtual room right now. When we started to join the academia a long time ago, we used to hear that if you use your first language in the class, this would be because you are not competent enough, or the people might think that you are not competent enough in using English, or you are not a very good teacher, and that's why sometimes you use your L1 instead of using only English. I don't know if you have heard about this or not, but I remember a long time ago, once I started joining the academia, that was the case. And that was the case not only in school principals, for example, or by the heads of the departments in schools and universities, but it was also the case by students and their parents. If a parent sees that a teacher is teaching a course using from time to time L1, even using English, clarifying vocabulary, for example, or clarifying an idea in a grammar, if L1 is used along with English, that is definitely very bad. Nowadays, this has changed, actually. Nowadays, people are talking about translanguaging in English as a medium of instruction context, where L1 can have a very effective role, and there are principles and certain ways, certain systematic ways to use English language and first language of learners, if not English, in order to teach subject contents. Now the world is changing, but unfortunately there are still some fossilized ideas about certain ideas, although they are and these fossilized ideas actually are changing myths into facts and facts into myths. So when we are talking about language in education policy, there are some dominant approaches, and these approaches are introduced in a very interesting book by Milgan and Tickley in 2018. And they are talking about two types of approaches: instrumental approach and right-based approach. To tell you briefly about the differences between them, an instrumental approach is usually linked with the language policy within the body of the institution where educational setting is happening, or even in a certain country. and in a certain government. So it is more a sort of a top-down policy where English is being used as a language, as a medium of instruction, for example, and it is used as the instrument of delivering and teaching other courses. Actually, if we think about English as a lingua franca, if we think about the global spread of English, and if we think about the market nowadays and how much the market and workplace depend on English, this is part of the instrumental approach of using a language institutions. Right-based approach is slightly different now. It is different in the sense that scholars are talking about the rights of certain groups of people. For example, child right, woman right, girls right, and education, especially, for example, in low-income countries. Now, the word right-based approach has also been slightly in a different way to talk about the person's right, again, in owning the English language, in claiming their ownership over the English language. So it is not only linked with economy in the society, whether the society is income or low income or high income, but it is talking actually about the individual users of English and the right to be the owner of English as well, just like what Smith has been talking about since the 70s. So these two terms, these two approaches, instrumental approach and right-based approach, has been used in a certain way, but still there are other people who are extending the second approach about right-based approach and they are talking about the right of the person, for example, to use English freely, whether they sound like native speakers or not, it doesn't matter. Now, social justice approach as well in language in education policy depends on certain principles. One of them is the capability of the learners to learn a language and the capability of the teacher as well to teach a language. It depends also in economic wealth and prosperity. Remember that we had just talked about the idea that global market and business depends basically on English as the main medium of communication, right? So the country economy and prosperity entirely depends, or to a large extent depends on language as the main tool of communication for business and for economy as well. It talks as well about a human right approach, just like when we said earlier, some communities were talking about child right, about woman right, but also we are talking about the rights of the non-native speakers to use English freely, right? And feeling that their accent, as long as it allows them to communicate easily, and to have a successful communication, this is all the expectations from them, and they should not be insulted for not sounding like native speakers. And this is linked also with the free abuse education, right? In the past as well, again, once there is a big change between what was there when we started teaching and what is going on at the moment. Unfortunately, in the past, students who are not very much competent in English were always considered low achievers, right? Looking at these capabilities right now has got a different point of view. Judging a student, whether a capable student or not, or whether a competent student or not, is not anymore, again, depending on native-like principles, but it has got actually other principles, and it has got other criteria. Now, there are two settings that we would like to focus on right now. And these two settings are, I've selected them here because these are the most negotiable settings about social justice and about equality, about equity in communication, and about enjoying using English and feeling that you are using it as if it is your own language. Okay, these two settings are the places where English is used as a medium of instruction in university, in higher education, and in schools. And the other one is accent loss. Accent loss, L1 accent loss, and L2 native speaker accent. Let's talk about the first setting, where English is considered as the medium of instruction in higher education. Let me at this point just double check with the audience as well. Can you please tell me in the chat box, how many of you is from a university or a school where English is used as a medium of instruction? Or is your university using your first language, not English, as a medium of instruction? Right. Khalil, okay. So you are Khalil, yes, me, okay. Right. Thank you. Right. Okay, so fine. So it is common. University of Technology and Applied Sciences, okay, in Muscat is using English. We use only English, not even another language. Okay. Both at school and uni, we're using English. Yes, that was the expectation. Let me tell you about the teacher's voice from one of the research projects that recently I have just completed and I'm the stage of writing up. Now, again, many of these teachers, these teachers are not only teachers of English, but they are using English to teach and deliver their courses, okay? And we can see here how dominant the global spread of English is and what the criteria is of these teachers in order to prefer to use English more than other languages, even if they are sharing their learners their first language. For example, the first teacher is saying, each country teaches the language that its market depends on. In the UAE, for example, and if the case is Oman is different, please let me know. In the UAE, the language of the market is not the Arabic language, but it is the English language. If I enter a market and I'm weak in English, which my field entirely depends on, I will be isolated and will not have an appropriate opportunity like the other people in my field who definitely master English. So again, the global market is actually one of the most important factors that are influencing social justice and equity in adopting English and claiming your ownership of it as a user of the English language. Okay, let me just give you an example about this context. In many of my slides, I'm referring to the UAE, but it is the same context in the other Gulf countries as well, like Oman, Saudi Arabia. If it is different at your end in Azerbaijan and in other countries of our audience, please draw my attention. You can share with me later your comments about the content in your country. In the UAE, for example, a study by the British Council asked the industry about the importance of English language to the employees that are joining them. And these are the responses of the industry in the UAE. 61% said English language is extremely important. They will never accept any application, even interview anyone if this person is not very proficient in English. 22% said somewhat important, but still they have to have English. Okay. Now the other become less and less, but if you add the 61 and 22 up together, you can see the very high percentage of how much industry in the UAE depend on the English language. And definitely depending on the English language in the industry is what the teachers are always talking about and they are concerned about in higher education. Even if they share their learner, their first language, they try not to use the first language. Why? Because they know how important it is for them to get used to using English. Another teacher is saying, as you can see it means English, is also my second language. This teacher is a math teacher. She's an Arab. She's an Arab and she's from Lebanon. And she's saying, English is my second language, and when I speak, I'm clearly pronouncing the words. She doesn't mind about what accent, what type of English she is using. She wants her students to understand the subject matter. But she's not sacrificing the use of English. So English has to come first, not Arabic, in teaching her course. But it doesn't matter in what pronunciation. I'm not like speaking in a slang language. I mean, my English is clear to them. That's it. Very practical. Do you agree with this teacher, or do you think that this teacher should be more careful with the way she's speaking in English? Okay, tell me just here, and I'm reading here your comments as well as you are putting them in. English and regional languages. Okay, fine, thank you. Now, another teacher. This teacher is saying, if anyone did it for me, which means, okay, let me tell you the background of this teacher. This teacher has Urdu as her first language, and she is teaching computer science. So among the comments that she was given when she was asked about has she ever tried to, for example, to translate any of the words, not just to Arabic learners, but even when she is talking in Urdu, or is she using English throughout? She said, if anyone did it for me, I would have done it for my students. She kept insisting that even when Urdu teachers who are speaking Urdu taught me during my education life, even when she was specialized in an IT in her undergraduate and master's in Pakistan, still her teachers who are also using Urdu never try to translate any single word, or never try to not use English in any incidents. So she felt like if this is the norm in the world, if this is the norm in the academia, let me just copy my teachers. I'm doing the same. So nobody has done that for me, and I'm not expected to do something different from my student. This teacher is excellent, actually. She is excellent in terms of always improving herself and finding great opportunities for her learners to learn. However, people are influenced by the norm in the world of education. Another teacher is saying, I explain to them by not speaking in Arabic. I'm helping them because if they go to the next course with another instructor who does not speak in Arabic, they will struggle more than what they will be usually struggling if I don't speak in English. I want them to be on the same level with those students with a non-Arab teacher. I may be harming more than helping them if I depend more on Arabic. Now, this teacher is sharing the learners her first language, which is the Arabic language. However, she knows that many of the other classes of the same course are being taught by non-Arab teachers. So she doesn't want her students to feel disadvantages that at some time in their life they have been using Arabic, because more or less in the next semester, they might be taught by a teacher who does not speak in Arabic. And to give you also the background about such comments, let me show you this. This is the information and fact sheet about the nationalities in Zayed University in the United Arab Emirates. And this is the number of the teachers coming from the countries being Arab or non-Arab according to 2020-2021 fact sheet. So the most updated statistics are saying that the Arabic university professor in that university who speaks Arabic as their first language are only 238 faculty members. The rest, which are 471, come from non-Arab speaking countries. So the 709 faculty members have got more than half of them do not speak the Arabic language. And actually, this is a concern for the teachers who are sharing the students their first language, although they have got the advantage of clarifying the subject matter more by using their first language in the classroom. Okay, Unfortunately, they cannot do that, or they feel that their students will be disadvantaged if they do that, because more or less next semester it's more likely that they will be studying with a teacher who does not speak English. So it's better, who does not speak Arabic. So it is better to stick to using English, so everybody can be on the same level, or can receive the same level of instructions in the same language. If we look at now this situation being fair enough to students or not, these are the most important factors that are actually influencing the performance of using English as a medium of instruction. And unfortunately, these are very important factors, but they are also affecting the extent to which people can claim more ownership and can enjoy more social justice over the use of English in their context. These factors are the availability of textbooks and materials, whether in English or in any other courses as well, being math or computer science, assessment and exams, right? Until now, we have got not just the TOEFL and IELTS, but even the math and science exams are also in English. In the United Arab Emirates, we have got the MSAT, which is the Emirati standardized test for students finishing high school, joining the university. And it might be slightly different from standardized tests in that matter regarding the use of language. Also, society and institutional demography. We have just talked about how the number of non-Arab teachers, when it is exceeding the numbers of the Arab teachers, even the Arab teachers now are trying to be in the same wave, and they are trying to use less Arabic than English. Previous practices as well is an issue. We have just seen in some research, including the one I have introduced to you here, that some teachers actually feel like the way they were taught the course worked well with them, even without their first language. So they believe that it will work well as well with their students. So there is no need to consider L1 in the class still. And definitely misconceptions about previous practices. Regarding the misconceptions about the previous practices, as we said earlier, once we started teaching and learning a long time ago, I can definitely remember when the chair of the department, because I was an Arab, I am an Arab, and I started to teach for the first time in higher education. And the head of the department realized that I'm an Arab, and he was concerned about using my first language while teaching grammar and other courses. So he was asking frankly about the extent to which I'm using or I'm planning to use or feel more comfortable to make the students understand grammar when I'm putting some Arabic words here and there. Okay. Which is a little bit strange, because nowadays when I say that chair of the department, he totally changed his view, and he started really to appreciate the fact that many teachers might be sharing the students their first language, because that can definitely have very positive effect in their language acquisition journey. Right. طيب. Let me touch upon L1 now, L1 accent loss, and L2 native speaker accent. And of course, whenever we're talking about accent, the best thing to do is to have some examples of recordings, maybe, in order to demonstrate our ideas about that. Before I share with you a recording about social justice and pronunciation, let me just give you the background about English language, or English as a lingua franca pronunciation. Okay, how many of you think that you can understand non-native speakers more than native speakers themselves? If you are an Arab, do you think that you can understand Azerbaijani speakers easily and even easier than some of the native speakers? Or do you think that the native speaker will be the easiest to understand? Tell me your thought about this. Okay. Right. You can hear me, right? Okay. Right. Okay, fine. Thank you. Okay, so Arabs, natives are easier. Okay. It depends upon my exposure. Oh, thank you. That makes sense. It depends on how much exposure again. Okay, native speakers are easier, native speakers easier. It depends on your English. Both are clear. Yes, I understand both depending on. Okay, fine. Let's talk a little bit about this more and see where we go on this one. طبعا in the field of English as lingua franca pronunciation, we talk about intelligibility. Intelligibility means طبعا it has got so many definitions. Darwin and Monroe talked about intelligibility as how easy it is to understand the pronunciation of someone. But Smith and Nelson were talking about intelligibility as the recognition of individual words, and comprehensibility is understanding the message. And they argued that sometimes if you hear somebody and you cannot understand what he's saying, at least if you cannot recognize the individual words, at least from his behavior, from his tone, from so many indicators, you can see if that person is angry or not, if that person is saying nice words or not. So, and more or less, you can understand what the situation is, even if you don't recognize every single word. So, more or less, intelligibility is linked with successful communication and being able to understand the person in front of you, whether you recognize his words or you recognize or understand his ideas, or you are able to carry on the communication with the person. This is the first thing that I want to tell you about. The second thing I want to tell you about regarding the English as a lingua franca pronunciation is the lingua franca core, the LFC. LFC refers to a certain set of features, of pronunciation features and of phonological features. And Jenkins established this in her book in 2000, saying that, okay, these are the features that it's better to focus on in teaching. Because if we focus on these features, if the person doesn't make mistakes in these features, the pronunciation will be clear. So no intelligibility problems. But if the person makes mistakes in these features, then we have to teach this person how to correct himself. Jenkins removed from her list things like stress times syllable. She removed things like intonation. And she kept in most of the feature only the consonants and the vowels, in addition to one suprasegmental feature, which is nuclear stress. So, generally speaking, the lingua franca core is referred to as L pronunciation or EIL pronunciation, English as an international language pronunciation, and it is a list of phonological features. And she believes also that this list should not be imposed on learners. Okay, so it is just a suggestion in order to prioritize teaching and learning, and to make sure that our class time is focusing only on the most critical features. And of course, there are many supporters to her approach. And one of the most famous supporters is Walker, Robin Walker, who has been writing so much about this since 2000, 2001 until 2015, 16, and until now. Right. And the speakers of English are not expected to be intelligible to everyone else. This is what they say. To some extent, I don't agree really with that, right? We are using English to be able to communicate with whoever we would like to communicate. Maybe we need to put some effort to modify our pronunciation, to modify our performance, to be able to communicate. But still, when I'm learning English to communicate, I'm never thinking about whether I'll be intelligible to everyone or not. I'm just using it with the expectation that I will have the skills that can make me function with English the way I'm happy with. But let me show you a recording, okay? In this recording, I want you please to focus on two things. Number one, okay, the native speaker, non-native speaker pronunciation, okay? Number two, right, pronunciation of English and communication among the native speakers themselves, okay? Is it because they are native speakers, it means that communication is 100% guaranteed or they can understand each other? Let's see the video about this. Okay, I'm going to start it here. Let me know, please, if you can hear this video or not. Just tell me in the chat box if you can hear. Tell me I can hear. If you cannot hear the video, tell me again in the chat box immediately so I can react, okay?
Excuse me, Miss Courtney? Yes? What do you want? I'm Sheikh Al-Hamid, and I'm interested in your English classes. Oh, well, you don't mind me saying so. Your English is fairly good. Thank you. It is comforting to know that my years at Oxford were not wasted.
Sorry, some people said that they can hear, but they cannot see. True?
Yeah, exactly. You are not sharing the video.
Fine, no worries. I think that you should be able to see it as well. So I'm going to fix this right now for you. 1 second, please. Can you see now? Excellent. Now you should be able to see and hear.
Excuse me, Miss Courtney? Yes? What do you want? I'm Sheikh Al-Hamid, and I'm interested in your English classes. Oh, well, you don't mind me saying so. Your English is fairly good. Thank you. It is comforting to know that my years at Oxford were not wasted. I would like my personal chauffeur to join your class. Well, of course he can. Where is your chauffeur now? Outside. Will you come in now? He's white. People usually are from Glasgow. Scots? But of course. Why do you want us to teach him English? Because I can't understand a word of what he says. I don't mean that. I don't understand it. You know, a bit now.
Let us move on in order just to get to touch upon the next idea regarding communication among native speakers themselves, okay?
Hello? Can I help you? No, I don't suppose you can. I've been told just go ahead with here. I shall button of 1047. I think the whole idea is ridiculous. I am supposed to teach English to foreign students. He sounds like a foreign student. Wouldn't it be far simpler for you to just get another chauffeur? No, I couldn't do that. You see, Jock's father gave his life defending my father during the war. I feel I owe him a living.
Okay, so right, back to slides. You can see my slides again, right? Now, in that video, there are two messages. There are two messages that I wanted to share with you, right? The first message is being a native speaker is not equivalent to being intelligible or being clear to people. We have just seen an example of an Arab person, and his pronunciation was quite clear, but then the other person was also supposed to be a native speaker of English, but it's still there are issues in communication, not only to speak to non-native speakers of English like the Arab person, but even to communicate in English with the other native speakers. Mr. Brown was able to understand the chauffeur, but the other guy who was cleaning the place was unable to understand. And this is the norm. Now, being a native speaker is not equivalent to being intelligible. And it's often possible that non-native speakers of English might be more able to communicate not just between each other, but with native speakers themselves as well, even more than the natives themselves. So there are so many criteria entering and getting into communication and the clarity of pronunciation and in intelligibility as well. Okay. Taban, the people who started to talk about there is no need to sound like native speakers, you can just claim ownership over English. There is a conflict, there is agreement and disagreement about that for many reasons. The people who believe that they should claim their ownership of English, they talked about identity issues, for example. Pronunciation and accent is the best carrier for identity, and you have the absolute right to reveal that identity. So why do you have to go through the experience of accent loss? Also, it reduces the load on the students. As we said, the look that we had is different right now. The students who and the teachers who don't have native pronunciation used to be looked at negatively. The same thing with the students; they were considered as low achievers, and this view has changed right now. So life is much more pleasant, as we can say, without claiming or without imitating native speakers in their pronunciation. However, we have got other people who have got some concerns. Some of them were saying all of this pronunciation might have a breakdown to the extent that these varieties can grow into languages that we cannot understand anymore. That's why we have to have a reference point. We have to have native-like pronunciation that we have to stick to. Okay. Again, this negotiation is going on. If you would like me to share with you later a paper about this that I have written earlier, 2018, 2019, about all of this argument, I'm more than happy to share you the entire argument about that. And now, we have got another important thing that people were talking about, and probably we are considering this act as well in our English listening and speaking classes. Teaching English as a lingua franca pronunciation should be accompanied by developing accommodation skills for successful communication, rather than depending entirely on the aspect of language such as pronunciation. So the problem is, when we teach pronunciation, we focus on the pronunciation. When we're teaching speaking, we are focusing on the speaking, but we forgot that in actual communication settings, communication is a two-way process. So there has to be accommodation skills In case pronunciation did not work, speaking did not work, then these accommodation skill can have the influence or can have the role to clarify the idea and clarify the situation. These accommodation skills are very important, definitely not only in English as a lingua franca, but we need them a lot in Arabic, because in Arabic we have got 22 countries. Each country has got its own dialect. In addition to that, within the countries themselves, there are regional dialects in each country. So you can imagine somebody from Oman communicating with somebody from Algeria and from Morocco. Will that go smoothly? It depends, right? Maybe if you communicate with somebody from Egypt, that will be easier because Egyptians are more around us, especially with media. We see their products in media industry every day. So the Egyptian dialect is very popular and well known. But with the Moroccan, Algerian, it might be more difficult for them to understand us and for us to understand them, right? So we end up using English with them, or we have to use Arabic, but we have to modify our Arabic. Can we use with them standard Arabic or modify my own local dialect? It's possible. Again, accommodation skill should accompany pronunciation throughout the way. Let me show you, let me just get back to that video in order to show you two things that are happening in the language classroom. These two things are, the first thing is accommodation of pronunciation, accommodation skills and pronunciation, clarifying through communication certain vocabulary and word, although the pronunciation is overlapping in some vocabulary. And the other thing is, I would like you again to think about sense of involvement in the classroom and the sense of social justice. Are these learners in the classroom claiming their ownership of English? Are they enjoying the use of English, although they are non-native speakers of English? Or have you noticed any discrepancies on this? Okay, let's go back to that video and hope that you can see it again here. You can see it again and hear it again, right?
Tower of Babel. Can't you think of anything better to do than chatter to each other? Sure. Hey, we go for a cup of tea. That's a good idea. Do no such thing. Sit down, be quiet, and pay attention. Right, better sit next to Anna. Okay. Hello, Ed. How's it going? What is your name? Hamish Hector Tuggold Donald Stewart McGregor. Well, I'll put you down as John. All right, John. Well, as you can see, we have a new student. You still have been looking for help me as one here, you know what I mean? Or if you see yourself, oh, I know, and all that haggis bashing nonsense. Oh, blimey, what language is he speaking? Believe it or not, it's English. It's right enough, you know, it's right enough.
If that is English, what language is it that we are learning?
Oh, Mr. McGregor is speaking in dialect. I thought you said he was speaking English. Oh, English, but with a dialect. Hey, I know all about them dialects. You do? Sure, I've seen them on television. Doctor Who and the dialects. Oh, that's dialect. Okie dokie. A dialect is a form of speech peculiar to certain areas. Tell them where you're from. I am a jock.
What is jock? Master Ji, please, I only know what is jock.
Good. Would you like to tell us all?
A jock is a funny story.
Mr. McGregor is from Scotland, which is part of Great Britain. Great Britain is comprised of England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. No. What do you mean, no? Not Wales in England. Wales in the sea. I'm talking about Wales, the country, at the end of the N4. Sorry. Wrong number. I'm not quite sure what to do with you for the moment. Oh, well, it's just nice enough to see. In that case, we'll just gang away. You're not going anywhere. Just sit down. For a start, you can concentrate on your diction. Well, I don't have a thought. This here. For example, repeat after me. The fat black cat sat on the mat.
Okay, so let me just get back to finish my last point in this presentation. Okay, but the message that I wanted to tell you about in that video particularly was these two things. Now, one of the issues in that classroom, it's not an issue, it is an advantage actually, that these people are coming from different backgrounds. Each one was understanding that person, the Scott person, from his own point of view. They were all struggling with English. They did not even know that it was English language, right? But again, it was expected by their teacher, by Mr. Brown, that it's normal that you don't understand them, understand his dialect, because it is a very specific type of dialect. Now, moving on again to carry the same idea. This is a very interesting chart by Jenkins 2006, who said, look, teaching English pronunciation or teaching the normal traditional syllabus that we always use. Yani if you are teaching stress time syllable, if you are teaching intonation, if you're teaching the traditional syllabus or not. And on the other hand, if you are following the English as a lingua franca principle, the end after teaching will be the same. Whether you taught this or you taught this, at the end, the students will move on a continuum, okay? And this continuum, they will not be moving from one extreme to another. And they will be, the end will be at the end the same, whether they are taught syllabus A or syllabus B. So actually using the time devoted in the class for more important things in teaching and learning a language, and focusing on native-like pronunciation that cannot be acquired, she considered as, just like Robin Walker, just a waste of time that should not be really spent on. Now, just to wrap up and summarize, the role of English should be accompanying the first language of the person for different reasons. Not just in English language classroom. If you are, for example, teaching grammar or whatever, but even, or particularly if you are using other courses, but English is the medium of instruction to teach these courses, being math or computer or any other courses. Of course, the preference to establish balance between L1 and L2. So many studies started to talk about that, particularly in using English as a medium of instruction. So we're not talking in that bit about the language classroom, but we are talking about other settings where English is used. And this is teaching math and science courses. Understanding the subject matter and on the other hand, the job market are two conflicting points, because the job market is dominated by English, while understanding the subject matter is the priority for teachers in the classroom at that point. So the teachers themselves are conflicting two facts. The first fact is making the students understand the subject matter in the meantime, while at the same time, in the future, English is not to be the dominant language. And of course, retaining identity can be achieved and accomplished by claiming the ownership of English and by claiming the person's right over using English in several contexts as their own language, whether being native speaker or non-native speaker. And the final thing that I would like to share with you is this figure from Millington and Tickley, where they were talking about, in order to achieve social justice in the places where English language is used, basically we have to achieve so many other criteria. So environment has to be focused on, economy of the community, and the domination of English over the market and the industry is another thing that we have to consider in talking about claiming justice or trying to achieve justice in using English. The environment, the educational setting, and all of this can contribute at the end to the capability of the learner himself in using and learning the language, and on the teachers themselves, who are actually also concerned in terms of claiming their ownership of the English language. Right. Stepping at this point, I would like to ask you about one more thing. The video we have just seen. Okay. What do you think the solution is? Mr. Brown cannot teach the chauffeur how to use English, and the other person cannot understand how to communicate, cannot understand the English of the chauffeur. So what do you think the solution can be in this case? Do you think that the chauffeur should have used accommodation skills in order to try to communicate with his chauffeur and even with the students on the class? Where is the problem? Where is the problem? And what is the solution that you're suggesting there? What do you think? If you were Mr. Brown, what would you have done? Mutual understanding is important. It is important, but the problem is this, yes, Ghalia, but the problem is there is no communication. They cannot understand each other. This is the problem. Body language, oh, thank you very much. So body language is one suggestion. Yes, it can do the job. Okay, the problem was lack of understanding. Exactly. Accommodation skills can do the job. Yes, Tanya. And the other thing is, remember that we talked about communication to be two-way process. It's not just one-way process, right? So if it is two-way process, it means that you have to sacrifice some of your linguistic identity. So you can, for example, reduce the very specific features that make your speech looks like that in order to be able to understand or to give the chance to the person in front of you to understand you. So reduce the speed, for example, of your speech, pronounce the word in a different way, or if the person doesn't understand pronunciation, if the problem is with vocabulary, maybe not pronunciation, just like what happened with the word wheel and other words, then what you can do, for example, is try to explain the meaning, even in English again, but to explain it. So accommodation skills are very important. Many people were talking about gesture language. Yes, gesture language and body language is also part of the accommodation skills, to be honest. It is very important. I would like you to look at the solution which Mrs. Courtney and Mr. Brown decided to consider for making the chauffeur and the other person communicate with each other. Okay? And let me know, after you see the solution in the chat box again, let me know, do you think that there is justice and equity and fairness in this solution? Well, there is no justice. Let's see that solution, okay?
Quietly.
Okay.
Where is everybody going? Keep late. Well, do it quietly.
Scotland, I'm sorry, I'm afraid I can't do it.
Can't do what?
Put up with our Scottish friend. He's a disruptive influence on the rest of the class.
Mr. Brown, I am afraid that you must.
Forgive me, I couldn't help overhearing. Is there some sort of problem?
No.
Yes, I'm afraid I cannot put up any longer with this chauffeur of yours. He's rude, self-opinionated, and extremely unpleasant. And you can keep your Rolls Royce. What an extraordinary man. Hey, you better wait in the car.
Okay, Gaffer, just hang about inside the motor now, eh?
That's a pity. I was quite looking forward to meeting your Board of Governors.
And so you shall.
But now the circumstances have changed.
Well, circumstances may have changed, but the object of the exercise remains the same. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong, but as far as I understand it, you wish to be able to converse with your Scottish chauffeur.
Yes, but I fail to see how that can be achieved now.
Well, every problem has its solution. I shall be taking you for the rest of the lesson, and I won't stand for any nonsense. What has happened to Mr. Brown? Mr. Brown is in my office doing some private tuition.
Repeat after me. It's a bra bricked moonlicht nicht the nicht. It's a bra bricked moonlicht nicht the nicht. Good.
Okay, so at the end, the solution, did you, now the entire topic that we have been talking about today is social justice and equity. So do you think that this solution can reflect any social justice and equity? Tell me yes, no, and why. Press the class or the student cannot expect perfect pronunciation. Okay, right.
That's 15 hours.
Okay, right. Yes, well, okay, and unfortunately, instead of having the chauffeur understand the situation and being able to sacrifice some of his linguistic features and linguistic identity, we ended up teaching the person with a very good pronunciation, he graduated from Oxford, we ended up teaching him about how to lose his English accent, not L1 accent, but his English accent in order to be able to communicate with his chauffeur. So overall, accommodation skills are important. And to be able to claim equity and social justice, you have, first of all, to stick to your identity, to appreciate your identity, to claim your identity and stick to it. Only with that, you can then start claiming the ownership of English language or any other language rather than yours. Thank you so much. I am just stopping here my presentation. Thank you so much for listening.
Okay.
Yes, Fadal. I don't know if it's time for the questions or not.
Yeah, I hope that my voice is audible. Thank you very much, Dr. Wafa, for your amazing and very informative session and presentation. So please, guys, if you have questions to Dr. Wafa, you can write in the chat box or you can raise your hand and then you can ask the question directly. But before that, Dr. Wafa, some of the participants asked for to share your personal email in the chat box, please, if you don't mind.
Sure. It is available here.
Yeah, okay. So you can take a screenshot of this one or, okay.
I can put it here in the chat box.
Exactly. Okay, thank you. Okay, guys. Yeah, let me allow the mics. Okay. And I think that you can see the hands, Dr. Wafa.
I can see the hands. Just 1 second. Right, just 1 second. I think that I can see hands.
Yeah, there are 3 hands raised.
I can. Oh yes, that's very correct.
Let's start with Sherry. Sherry, please. Could you please unmute yourself? Hello. Okay, Mohsen. So please, could you please unmute yourself and ask the question or?
Hello, assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me? This is Mohsen here.
Yes, we do. Hello, Mohsen.
Hello. Hi, I'm from Saudi Arabia. Thank you for your wonderful presentation and enlightening presentation. I just would like to ask, as a teacher, do we need to create or adopt our lesson keeping in mind the context or the environment of the local community?
Right. Thank you, Mohsen. Actually, there are so many advantages in considering the local community of the student and in textualizing your material. It increases understanding and makes the students acquire the language and the subject matter in a better way. For that reason, many writers actually are arguing that it is even more equity, and it is even better for the students if the teacher contextualize the material for their students. We know that this is challenging because if we are using existing textbooks, they are not always designed for Saudi Arabia context or for the Gulf context, right? So we can filter them probably, and then we can take what can be appropriate to teach, and then other than that, we can develop, for example, our own material. Having said this, often if I can't find contextualized material, or I have no time to develop my own contextualized material, I have to adopt existing material in the textbook from time to time, to be honest. But yes, priority is for contextualizing for your, the context.
Yes, I agree with you. As we say that in Englishes, this is word Englishes. So that's why I had this question. When we say word Englishes, why don't we adopt this method for teaching our lessons as word Englishes?
Actually, in word English is one of the most important principles for Smith was when he said in teaching the language or in using English, teach it through the culture that you find appropriate. It can be your own culture. So you don't need to stick to the culture or the context of the native speakers themselves, right? This is number one. Number two, there are writers already who are developing some textbook. Think, for example, about the book by Robin Walker. Robin Walker, in his book about pronunciation, teaching pronunciation, he was considering not only the pronunciation of native speakers, but he was considering the pronunciation of people from different countries, including the Arab world. Okay. So all of this is just an example to show you people now moved away from native speaker norms and native speaker cultures only. Okay, so they are just expanding. It is a world language, and all the cultures should fit into them. Did I answer your question, Dr. Mr.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, yes, you did. Yes,
That's
thank
great.
you very
Thank you
much.
so
Thank you.
much. Thank you. I think Mr. Brian, yeah. He's raising, Mr. Brian is raising his hand as well. So then, Mr. Brian, go ahead. Okay, you can unmute yourself. صح, Mr. Faisal, they can unmute themselves by themselves, right? ولا should we unmute them? طيب, Gulshan, then Khalid Ahmed, right? Gulshan, your hand is up. Gulshan's mic is disabled. Can you write your question in the chat box, Gulshan? If that's okay for you. Thank you so much, Fazia. طيب, I can see people raising their hand, but I don't know why they cannot speak. Maybe Khalid Ahmed. Should we move to Khalid Ahmed? Can you please speak? Khalid Ahmed. I don't know. Ustad Faisal, none of them can speak, I think. I don't know what the reason is.
Can I say something, please?
Yes, please. Who is it? Tfadal.
Joaquin.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, Professor, thank you very much for your wonderful presentation and this sharing of experience in ELT. Of course, I learned a lot from this presentation. My attention was one of the special aspects that you shared with us on teaching pronunciation. And you agree with Rob Walker when he says that when teaching pronunciation, special attention should be paid on vowels and consonants. Now, I partially agree also on this statement. Now, my concern is with the level. Is it that when we teach pronunciation at N level, then attention should be paid to vowels and consonant, or depending on the level of the students, we can also look at stress, look at intonation, because I think that stress and intonation in English also plays a very great importance. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, regarding, okay, for me, yes, I do agree in principle with Walker and with Jennifer Jenkins and with all of these people. And actually, when I was sharing with you some of the slides in my, when I was sharing with you some of my slides, actually, the people who were with the lingua franca core, okay, who are defending the lingua franca core. I am one of these people who is defending the lingua franca core. And I have written about these at least 3 or 4 times. I've been writing about this since 2019. So I can share with you the implications of that if you want, how it can be used, and in what circumstances. So definitely I can share with you of all of that if you want. Now, regarding the level of the students, here is the thing. When we are teaching, and the list is not that massive or big. Actually, when we start teaching the students the sounds, since we start to teach them the sounds, we start to teach them the vowels, the consonants, all of these, they are growing with the students. So there isn't really any place where we can, there isn't really any stage where we can say, oh, I'm going to teach them this list, and then next semester or next year, I'm going to teach this to them another list. This should be the one that can be used by the teachers throughout. This list, by the way, does not have suprasegmental features. It doesn't have intonation. It doesn't have word stress. It doesn't have all of this. The only suprasegmental feature it includes is only nuclear stress, and that's it. And why nuclear stress was included in there? Because of its importance in sharing the meaning and in stressing the meaning of the and of the message during communication. So this is the only feature. Everything else was only vowels and consonant, in addition to one more feature about the length of the vowel in one of the vowels only. So that list does not really, it cannot be really divided into, it can be reinforced. It can be reinforced with some exercises every year, but there is no place where we can delay anything for the following year or whatever. Because it's speaking and pronunciation, right? Just like how do you teach speaking? You give more exercise, right? You let them practice more, right? And this is pronunciation. Whenever you are teaching pronunciation, the same instructions should be in there also. I hope that I replied to that question. Okay, thank you so much.
Sure.
Right. In my research gate, you will find my research and publications about pronunciation. So about the implications of pronunciation, about what list of features to focus on that, you can find them all available there. Okay. Thank you. And Mr. Brian is again sharing his hand. Would you like to speak, Mr. Brian?
Yeah. Okay. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Mr. Biranba. I'm an English language teacher from Senegal, West Africa.
Oh,
I
hi.
want just to, yeah, thank you. I want just to thank you a lot for this great presentation. And the presentation also is very fruitful and very learning to me, as I learned a lot with you today. And it helps me also because I want just also to thank you for giving me this opportunity to develop also again my personal and professional skills in teaching, speaking. And also I want to thank a lot the guest speaker. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brian. Actually, all of these thanks should go to Mr. Faisal, who has arranged for this session. So thank you so much, Mr. Faisal. Right. Dr. Christine. Dr. Christine, you can speak. Yes, Dr. Christine, you can go ahead and speak.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. Just a small clarification. I totally agree that the English language pronunciation and intonation to the native level is not whatsoever important when other subject matters are being taught. However, when the English language is being taught, I do insist, or I do believe personally, that there should be some standards to be followed so that the understanding level is at least on an acceptable as and the term you used, intelligible level, because people foreign origin and language with other L1s, they speak with an accent and they spell with the way they speak. And it's not only verbal communication that is most of the time misunderstood, but also written communication. Instead of a statement, there is a question. Instead of a question, there is a statement and stuff like this. What is your view about it? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Steve. Now, this is the issue of intonation. Many people say that it cannot be taught. You can describe it. If you have a recording, a speech recording, you can describe intonation. But to teach the learner how to use it, it is unteachable. You might ask the learner to imitate the intonation that they have heard in the recording by repeating the same sentence and by using the same intonation up and down. But for their own use, intonation is unteachable, and it is very much linked with your own message, right? For example, let's think about the Indians, okay? The Indians use intonation. Okay, if we have got colleagues who are Indian here, please correct me if this is correct or not. But when I had this argument with one of the Indian colleagues, the Indians clarified to me something. They said when they ask a question, they don't change the order of the word. Like in English, we say, "Is Aisha your name?" The Indians say, "Aisha is your name." Right? But they don't change the order. However, in order to show that this is a question, they control their intonation. So they say, Aisha is your name? Or something like that. If there are Indians here, please correct me if this is correct or not in your own language. But this is an example about the role of intonation. The speaker is the one who controls the intonation according to his message. And for that reason, intonation is classified as being unteachable. It cannot be taught. The same words can be said in different ways according to the speaker's intention. Right? If we say, just another example, if we say, if you're talking to somebody who you don't like very much, or maybe you like, but then you tell this person, the door is behind you, right? This might be different from saying it in another way, right? If somebody is late, and then I tell, for example, my niece and nephew, like, you were late. What can you understand from my tone? You were late. It means that you made a mistake, right? But then if I tell her, you were late. What is you were late? So she will feel like this is expressing my worries about this, but I'm not blaming her, but I'm expressing my worries. So intonation, that's why, for that reason, intonation is very often and most of the time is unteachable. It is a feature in pronunciation, but it cannot be taught. So this is an example about intonation.
Thank you.
Did I answer? You're welcome, Christine.
Thank
You're
you
welcome.
very much for great presentation again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christine. Mundir has his hand up. تفضل يا منذر.
Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
I am Dr. Mundir Zayuri from Palestine.
Hello, Dr. Mundir.
Thank you very much. I would like to talk about this pronunciation and how it should be regarding the native speaker and non-native speakers. Actually, the native language of the speaker plays an important role in his pronunciation. Regarding Arabic and English, they are not cognates, and we have many differences in maybe in spelling, in writing, in reading, etc. regarding English and Arabic. So these things, the interference of the mother tongue, can affect the way we pronounce English. Not Arabic only, also if you hear a Chinese speaking English or a Japanese or an Indian speaking English, their pronunciation is affected by their native language. So I believe once we can understand what they are talking about and their message is true, then thing is okay. We should not concentrate much on how he pronounce. You know, I studied in India, and sometimes when you speak with Indian, they will say, "Wow, I love you. Many times I have told you not to do this and that." You know, even in Egypt, the way they speak this and that, etc. As far as you understand what they are saying, then leave pronunciation aside, because I'm sure none of us can be or will be able to be like the native speakers. And the videos you have shown also, even native speakers, they cannot understand each other. The one who is staying in London and the one who is staying in the suburb of London, they speak differently.
Sure. Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Mundir. Thank you so much. Yes, actually, that's very correct. This is the thing, Yani, and especially with the consideration that English is a global language, what matters to people is to use it for communication to achieve their needs in everyday life. It doesn't really matter if they are speaking like native speakers or non-native speakers, simply because native speakers themselves have to modify their pronunciation in order to be able to communicate. Unfortunately, many people think that having teeth makes you a dentist. This is what happens. So if you are a native speaker, it means that your pronunciation is perfect. You don't need to make any efforts in communication. It's all right. Everybody should be able to understand you, or it is not the responsibility of any. It's not your own responsibility to use accommodation skills or to sacrifice your linguistic identity a little bit on communication. And it's just the responsibility of the other people. It's their mistake that they are non-native speakers of English. Why? Why? So since they are non-native speakers of English, it means that they are the one who has to work harder in order to be able to communicate, even if the native speaker pronunciation is unclear. Unfortunately, this is the very wrong perception and attitude, unfortunately. What you have been saying was absolutely correct. I cannot agree. I fully agree with you. I cannot agree with you less than that, honestly. And the other thing is, unfortunately, until now, when people lack the awareness about these principles that accompany the global spread of English, unfortunately, until now, we hear some expressions like speak correct English, like native speakers. If you feel shy the way you speak in English, join this course, okay? Do you want to speak like native speakers? Do this course. Why should I feel shy if my accent is not like native speakers? Who said that I'm speaking incorrectly if my accent is not like native speakers? Who said that I want to speak like native speakers? Let them speak like me if they want. Okay, so unfortunately, it's a matter of awareness. It's a matter of attitude, unfortunately. I know that the time of this presentation was limited, but I had other contents and slides that I usually collect for so many examples in social media available for announcing some courses. And these courses are telling people literally, if you need to speak correctly, join, like native speakers, join this course. We hope at least that the people who are available here have changed their mind about the principles of teaching pronunciation. It's by the way, and attitude is even more powerful than many other factors. Familiarity and exposure is very important. We have seen so many colleagues here talking in the chat box about exposure. Yes, familiarity and exposure is extremely important. However, the influence of attitude is even stronger, and it exceeds it exceeds familiarity and exposure. In some communities, when there are two classes, high class and low class, they are always in exposure to the varieties of each other. And in a research, the researcher found the people in the upper class cannot understand the people in the middle class. They found them unintelligible, while the middle class found the upper class very intelligible. But why? They are in the same amount of exposure. Why? Because it's the matter of attitude. The attitude about low class and high class. So attitude influenced their decision about understanding or not understanding the people they are communicating with. So attitude is really very important. Thank you. Okay. Do we have any more questions? I found, can I read a question from the chat box? Yeah. We have got, yes, sorry.
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon to all.
Wa alaikum assalam.
I am Muhammad from Oman.
Hello, Muhammad.
First of all, I would like to thank for such an amazing and wonderful presentation. It was very fruitful and we learned a lot from it, I hope. So my question is that as a teacher, there are two accents popular in the world, American accent and British accent. So as a teacher, I would like to ask you, which accent should we follow during our classes to our students, as I'm teaching here in the Middle East? So American accent and British accent. So can we mix them together sometimes, or should we strictly follow only one, British or American? Thank you very much.
Thank you. This is the ongoing issue. And the least I can tell you is mix whatever you want. Mix them, not only American English or general American, and receive the pronunciation. Even mix them with your own pronunciation. Okay. It doesn't really matter which one you are following, because even in the UK itself, a very limited percentage of people perceive the pronunciation. Very limited, right? In the US, for example, many people are speaking different varieties, and General American is not the common one there. So why do you need to restrict yourself with rules that do not exist in the land of the native speakers themselves? We shouldn't be harsh on ourselves. Honestly, we shouldn't be harsh on ourselves at all. I know that if you are using textbooks, usually the textbooks control us about what to use. But to be honest, allow your students to use more varieties of English, to listen to more varieties of English. Again, the book by Robin Walker in 2010 comes with a CD about the conversation with people coming from different first languages. And why is that? Because the idea is to allow your students increase their exposure to different varieties of English. Okay. And how can you do this? If you keep introducing to them only American English and British English, that's not good, right? They will not, English is a global language. It's not only the language of Americans or British. But then in Oman, how often do they see Americans or British? But they see Hindi, Pakistani, different varieties of Arab nationalities, right? And they have Chinese, okay, Asian nations. So they can see many people who are not necessarily native speakers. So why don't you expose them to all of this, right? So it doesn't really matter which one you are focusing on. Now, the lingua franca core, or the pronunciation of English as a lingua franca, has got a fixed set of features. It says focus only on these features, correct them only, and be close to the native speakers only in a certain set of phonemes and sounds only, but not in everything else. The stress, why do we need the stress? Don't use it. Okay. The intonation, no. So this is what the lingua franca core is saying. I found one issue with the research is going on with the lingua franca core. I found one thing that I disagree with when Jenkins was talking about the stress, herself and Walker as well. Because in the Arabic context, I found that when the Arabs pronounce long words, like transportation or explanation, for example, all of these long words, if the Arabs do not have stress somewhere, the long word will be ununderstandable. Why is this? Because Arabic in its nature it puts stress almost on every single. We use it more often than the English language. So the English language is stress. Exactly. So our language is more rhythmic than the English language. So if the word is short and we already add the stress, it's not a problem. But if the word is long, like 5 syllables, for example, and we put a stress on everything, that is a problem. So the word comfortable, if it is read in that way, in one of my research in 2018, nobody understood it. Many people are saying that I cannot understand it. But when the stress, at least the stress was put at the start, which says comfortable, people understood it more. Now, remember that the lingua franca core is influenced by the first language of the speakers. Jenkins has got her participants in the research study, people who are non-Arabs, but they are Japanese and also they come from some European countries, but none of them was an Arab. That's why they didn't have any problem with the pronunciation, because their L1 has got its own features in terms of word stress. But Arabic is different because it is more rhythmic. So when I applied her study on our context, I found that long words should have at least one word stress in Arabic. Again, if you would like to read more about these, Mohammed, I can share, maybe I can put in the chat box the link for my for my work in the ResearchGate.
Dr. Wafa,
Yeah,
you can
sure.
put the link. You can put the link in the chat
Sure.
box, because more hands raised now.
I will.
Now we have 2 hours. I mean, and today is the end
Sure.
of the week here.
Sure.
And it's your holiday, sorry, and then we disturb.
Yeah, the National
we
Day.
damage. Yeah, sure. Happy National Day for Emirates.
Thank you so much.
Yes. So please, if you have any question, please. I think Dr. Wafa will go through the what is written in the chat box. So the chat box will be open.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll also put for them the link for the ResearchGate, so they can
Lovely.
see the publications about pronunciation.
So more hands are raised, so we'll not finish. So guys, on behalf of English Language Center, Applied Science, University of Technology and Applied Science, Ibri Oman, would like to say a big thank you for Dr. Wafa. I'm really that we damage your holiday. And thank you all. And please, so you can contact Dr. Wafa through the email. I think she has already wrote the email in the chat box. And thank you very much.
Right. Okay. I'm going in the right. I'm trying to leave for you here. Yes, I'm going to leave for you here the link for the ResearchGate items, so you can find the pronunciation articles available. Okay. I think that they were posted, right? Yes, you can find them here. So the articles about teaching pronunciation are available. Feel free as well, please, to contact me through my email if you want. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day. Okay, and bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.